I got this vehicle on trade. Before we made the deal, I went through and checked all the fluids. I noticed they were pretty dark. And you can use that when you're negotiating to just be like, hey, I don't know that everything's been properly maintained. Anyway, here we are. We're gonna change the brake fluid. And the first thing I want to say is that you can probably find a place to do this work for $100. And as you see when you go through this, that's probably gonna be worth it. So call around, and if the prices are tolerable, I would just have somebody else change the fluid. Regardless, we're gonna go through the process. And the process that I use is using a power bleeder, also known as a pressure bleeder, also known as just a pressure pump. And the reason for that is because the number one thing when you're doing a brake fluid change is you cannot have air enter the system, enter the brake system. Because if air enters the system, what happens is your pedal will not have as much, your braking won't have as much stopping power. So if your pedal has a range like this, your brake pedal, now what'll happen is instead of getting braking power all the way through the range, what's going to happen is it's going to kind of drop in spongy like with no braking power or stopping power, and towards the end you'll get a little bit of stopping power, and so you don't have as much. It's not safe. It doesn't feel good. So if that happens when you do this change, then you're going to have to go and do it again to get that air out of the system. So what happens here is we're going to use these screws here, okay, and these are the caliper bolts, and if you notice, they all have this little cap on the top that you can just peel off like so, and the brake fluid is going to come out of this hole because the bolt itself is designed to relieve fluid through it. And so you start at the very end, at the back right, because this is your brake fluid reservoir and this is your primary cylinder. And what the reservoir just holds the fluid. What the primary cylinder does is it takes the force that's, the pedal is, when the pedal is being depressed, it takes that force and converts it to force the fluid into the calipers so that the calipers squeeze the rotors which are connected to the wheel, and it stops the wheel, it stops your car, etc. So we want to start with the caliper that's farthest away from this primary cylinder, which is in the back there. And before we do that, we're going to pressurize the system. And so you fill this up with brake fluid. Now, if you want, you can look up for your vehicle how much fluid the capacity of your brake system takes, and by that amount. I wouldn't recommend that. What I would do is I would overbuy the fluid, because you're going to be pumping fluid out, and whatever's left in here you can just put back into the containers and use it for your next brake job. Make sure that the brake fluid matches the vehicle specifications. So it takes .3, .4, .5, etc. You have to be able to match that. So I like to fill this up pretty full so I don't have to worry about running out of fluid and introducing air into the system. So we'll tighten this up, and you want to get this pretty tight. And now you need to fit this to the brake fluid reservoir. Each year, make, model, whatever, can be different. So you have to get an adapter that will fit onto the reservoir, and this needs to fit airtight, because if it doesn't, now you're going to get air into the system. Now, there's a general adapter you can use. However, I would caution you on that general adapter because it looks like this. And what happens is you strap it to the top of the reservoir, and it uses these chains here. I'll go ahead and show you. And you use these chains down here to take it up, and there's a gasket in here. You strap it to the top and you tighten it this way. I never could get a good seal using this, so what I've always done is I've always just looked for and bought the actual adapter that fits that reservoir for whatever vehicle I'm working on. But look at the manufacturer's recommendation of the power bleeder that you're using and pressurize accordingly. So that said, and you can see the fluid already going in there, so you can see it's getting pressurized, and you can kind of feel it here. Now, it's helpful if you have a buddy that can monitor that, but you can do this yourself. You don't have to have a buddy. So, we're going to start with the rear right caliper, then we're going to go the next farthest, which is the rear left caliper, then we're going to go to the front right caliper, and then we're going to finally go to the front left caliper. So we pick off our little sealer there, hold it like so. We stick on this tube because we want to catch the fluid coming out. Actually, I should have put the wrench on first. I'm going to put the tube on. Okay, so as you can see, the dark fluid is coming out, and once it turns clear, then you know that the new fluid is coming in, and so we can retighten our caliper bleeder screw up here. Now that we've done our calipers, we're going to disconnect the power bleeder. So you'll notice when we do this, all this air bubbles are going to come rushing back into the bleeder. See them? I'm trying to do this with one hand, like so. See them all coming back out because the air tends to rise, and so that's why you have this. I'll move it over here. It might be a little easier to see. See that? So that's, and you may or may not have been able to hear that. That's any air that was in there came rushing back into this reservoir.